Okay, it looks like we are on. So welcome everybody to the August 9th Académie Lafayette board meeting. It's hard to believe we're already at the end of our summer. So first on the agenda is just to approve the agenda. Hopefully everybody saw it. Any changes that are needed? If not, can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So move is John.
Beth, sorry, I was on mute. Did we want to take that part off of governance?
Oh,
yeah.
thank you. Just one minor change under governance. It says board training is Dana. It's not Dana. We're just talking about board training, but not doing a training. Thank you. I totally.
Right. So I amend my motion to approve pending a modification to 7A.
Second, Harriet.
Any discussion? Everyone approve, say aye.
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 Any nays? Motion passes. All right, I know we have one parent signed up for stakeholder comments tonight, so we will give the floor to Kevin. I think you're here, yes? Well, you are on mute. I know on a phone it's hard to.
Oh, there it is. Sorry.
Not to worry.
Thank you. Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yep, we can.
All right. Thank you. I'm in a car. I'm in a parked car, so don't worry about that. But I just wanted to make a statement real quick. I know we've only got a few minutes, but I just wanted to talk about the COVID policies. And I hate to be a broken record on this, especially on masking of young kids, but I'm afraid I'm going to be. I just want to say, first off, I'm well aware that we have city and county mandates. And I feel like my comments apply equally to those, as well as any future policies that the school might impose beyond the mandates. I just wanted to reiterate that the policies that we have to mask our kids, especially our small children, is one that seems to have no upside to them or society and nothing but potential harms. The CDC now admits that vaccinated people spread the virus as much as unvaccinated people. And the president's former advisor, Dr. Osterholm, was the latest last week to acknowledge that masks don't do anything to prevent viral spread. So, the bad news, as I see, is that COVID is going to continue to spread unabated until practically all of us get it. And I don't think there's any escaping that reality. The good news is it's much less dangerous now, and our treatments are improving all the time. My wife's and my position is there's no logical reason for any restrictions or mandates at all, since the masks don't help the person and don't help others. And for kids especially, there's only possible downsides, such as hypoxia or the hindrance of their development or language skills, bacteria on the masks, etc. And I just feel like we have no idea of the developmental problems we're causing, both physically and mentally. So it's been famously cast in the media that people like my wife and I are somehow like science denying Trump supporters. And we've only got a couple minutes here, but I can assure you that that's, couldn't be further from the truth for us. I'd be happy to sit down with anybody in person and talk in more detail about all these, but I feel like we need to focus all of our attention as a school on an exit strategy. Our kids, all of our efforts to have kids in school can be thwarted by perpetrating a climate of fear and having these physical interventions that could be damaging. And I feel like that's even more true in a school that's focused on language skills and language immersion. So from my opinion, I just feel like that this is all terribly wrong. I respect it's incredibly difficult to go against the grain on these issues and against CDC guidance. But I feel like we're all going to deeply regret these decisions in the future. And I hope there is an opportunity in the near future to reconsider these policies for the sake of our kids. And that's really all I'd like to say today. Thank you for your time.
Absolutely. Dave, thank you for your comments. We definitely recognize that parents have concern with the policy that's been finalized, and the committee will continue to consider parent concerns in the decisions that they make. But it is definitely critical that we follow the guidance of our health professionals just to ensure the safety of our students. So while we don't have time to discuss it further tonight, we really appreciate you joining us to share your thoughts.
Thank you.
All right, next on the agenda, approval of the July minutes. Can I get a motion to approve?
So move to approve the minutes. This is Harriet.
Second,
Kelly, second it.
any discussion? Everyone in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion carries. I think Alonda's on. Is there PTO updates? Hello.
Excuse me. Hi. Yeah, we got a couple of updates. It's been a little weird summer, crazy, but we've been trying to focus on getting everybody hyped for the next year. We do have a tentative board meeting on the end of the month, so it's either the 23rd or the 30th, and then I plan to have, it was supposed to be September 15th, but I realized that was the regular board meeting, but I moved it back to September 28th for all school board meeting, for the all school PTO meeting. The PTO has been working on trying to get people together. We've kind of hit the track running this time. We got different types of, we're going to have flyers coming out. We put together some back to school, just kind of pep up the different campuses of getting some volunteers to kind of decorate a little bit, just to see that everybody's excited for everybody to join and come back to school, because last year we didn't have this at the beginning. So we have some decorations coming, and we also have some, excuse me, we just have some things kind of planned just to make everybody excited about being in school, and meet the teacher night and things like that. So just so we can kind of run as smooth as possible, just in case, not putting it in the universe that we do go back into maybe a hybrid mode, that we have everybody's contact information and everything can just flow and everybody's just kind of happy. But we do have some new things on the agenda if they are able to be done, you know, not knowing how the COVID and the Delta and everything that's going on, but we do have some things planned for this fall. So we are very excited. So that's what we have going on so far. So I figure right now we're just doing kind of month by month, but still have things tentatively on the schedule and the agenda. So we are excited. So we want everybody to be excited with us. So.
And I so appreciate the work that you and the whole PTO does. I know now more than ever, it's critical just to help parents feel a part of the school and excited about school. So it is no small task in this environment we find ourselves in. So
we're just trying. We want people to be excited, not just excited. We got new parents coming in, and yeah, we just want people to be excited. However we can do it. We have a great group of people, and then we not just the board members, but we have a lot of just people who just want to help. You know, I always tell people you don't have to do anything but just say I have 5 minutes, and then that I can use that 5 minutes. I will use everybody's minutes. I will find a way to use those minutes, if whatever it is. So yeah, so we're just excited for that. So
awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions for Alonda? No. All right. Thank you for your time. I think next we'll pass it over to Katie with Bellwether, who's going to walk us through some of the things that they've been working on with the school.
So much for having me this evening. Hopefully you are all now looking at the cover page of a PowerPoint. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Beth, for the thumbs up. Super helpful. So my name is Katie Rouse. I'm a senior associate partner with Bellwether Education Partners. We are a national nonprofit that supports education organizations, charter schools, school districts, education nonprofits in strategic planning, organizational and operational effectiveness. I had the privilege of working alongside Mr. Ndang and Jackie earlier this spring and into the summer to answer a key set of questions. During this process, I also had the opportunity to speak with a handful of colleagues and folks on the phone today or on the Zoom call this afternoon. And so for those of you who have a little bit more context or background, please don't hesitate to ask questions or elevate things that we might have had an opportunity to discuss earlier this summer. But the questions that guided our work and our project together earlier this summer were, first, what are Académie Lafayette's organizational and operational strengths and opportunities? What are the key responsibilities or functions the team sees an opportunity to scaffold or to strengthen? The second question was, how might we learn from other charter schools, most especially other language immersion schools, dual language schools in similar funding environments, around how they structure their organization roles and responsibilities, as well as how they've deployed creative operational structures to support delivery of some of their what we might call central office functions to schools. And then finally, what might we recommend this board and the leadership team at Académie Lafayette consider to, first and foremost, do good for students while also improving the resilience and sustainability of the school's administrative team? And so we were working toward some finalized recommendations, which we will share with you this evening, along with supporting and documenting our process, including benchmark synthesis and synthesis from the current state review. So that was what we set out to accomplish. And over the course of the next 15 or 20 minutes, I will walk you through both what we learned and what we recommend. So again, happy to answer questions. If you have them, feel free to put them into the chat or signal me, and I will slow down and answer questions. So what we learned, first and foremost, and I think it's really important to highlight and celebrate this in the context of this evening's board meeting, which is the Académie Lafayette team shares a remarkably deep commitment to the mission, and focus on students is an absolute priority across. We interviewed 20 folks and conducted a fairly extensive document review, including reviewing the SQR School Quality Review Report from SchoolWorks. Yes, thanks for the note. See if this helps. Is that better? Great. Thank you for the chat. It's very big on my screen, so I didn't realize it was small for you all. The team is such an asset, both the team's commitment, the focus on students, the dedication, the time the team invests, the resilience of the team, all stand out as wonderful and remarkable strengths. I think sitting next to this is that the average tenure of the team is deeply impressive, both in the context of Kansas City, but also in schools nationally. When we look across charter schools nationally, the average tenure and the overall tenure of the team at Académie Lafayette is remarkably impressive. Across the team and schools, we heard both a set of wonderful strengths around the entrepreneurial spirit and culture of all hands on deck, coupled with some challenges of ambiguous decision-making authority. So that strength, there's two sides of the same coin, both this wonderful strength of all hands on deck, entrepreneurial spirit, coupled with an opportunity to address ambiguous decision-making. Again, when we think about Académie Lafayette in the context of other charter schools that have grown, and when I talk about growth, I'm talking about both an increase in student enrollment, serving a greater number of students, but also growth across multiple campuses. So that move from a single location to multiple locations. What we see is that the organization structure has not yet flexed to accommodate the size and scale of the network, which creates some challenges for role sustainability across the organization. And again, we can't kind of discuss these challenges without acknowledging the unique and specific challenges of the past 12 months, and that we are continuing into this next school year, the past 18 months of navigating and leading through a pandemic. And so while we recognize and appreciate the challenges, the time, the capacity constraints that pulled every member of the team in every role to navigate and lead through COVID this school year, we heard from principals especially that they are eager to dial up their time investment in instructional leadership and coaching. And so as we looked at this current state, reviewed benchmarks and practices from other charter schools, we narrowed down a list of recommendations for implementation consideration over the next 2 to 3 years. I will briefly name these now, but we will come back to them in just a couple of minutes. So the first is to codify the network model. The second is to clarify decision processes. The third is to clarify teacher and team expectations through training and accountability. The fourth is to refine reporting structures. And finally, this last one, which we do acknowledge requires incremental investment, would be to hire a full-time human resources or talent role, which would centralize the ownership of the talent cycle for the organization. So again, the balance of these recommendations are cost neutral and have great potential to support the team to work more effectively across multiple campuses. So I will now kind of give you a little bit more context on what we heard and what we learned. Any questions before we move on? Sounded like somebody might have come off of mute. Nope. All right. So I mentioned benchmarking. So we did some internal assessment to understand the team's perspective, and then we also looked externally. And so we benchmarked 3 other charter schools. The first was Audubon Schools in New Orleans. They are also a French immersion charter network with a very long legacy in New Orleans, frankly, not dissimilar from Kansas City in terms of the origin story of the school and the history of the school community. They serve a similar number of students, and again, similarly to Académie Lafayette, work in a pretty lean funding environment. The second network we benchmarked was a dual language school in Washington, D.C. that is in the midst of growth. The funding environment in D.C. is not similar to Kansas City, but helpful to get perspective again from another dual language school. And then finally, we talked with the team at Crossroads to have a Kansas City benchmark. So again, a network that is not dissimilar in size and grade band serving, along with the same funding or exact same funding environment. And so what we heard from these networks was, first and foremost, they have structured their organization, their teams, to prioritize instructional leadership and to build their team to support that priority. And so we heard a constant drum beat of let's take everything, as much as we can, that is non-instructional off the plate of our principals. The second piece was to simplify operations in every possible way to save time and increase impact. And here we heard a combination of outsourcing things, using the right platform for the challenge, leveraging vendors as best as possible when you do contract with a vendor. So really advantage of the full suite of offerings from vendors. And then finally, this last piece was to clarify and communicate roles and responsibilities. So to get super specific about who does what and why, and to be really clear about where decisions sit. You know, in this last quote, you know, we heard from one of the leaders that, you know, they really try to push decision-making down to the school level, to the level where those decisions belong, to both support efficiency and to allow the right team members to be doing the right work. So what are the implications from this current state learning that we did coupled with a benchmarking? The first was where I started with our executive summary, that Académie Lafayette has a remarkable number of strengths, especially around mission alignment, tenure of team. We heard that roles are not yet right-sized for the scale and the footprint of the network, and that opportunities exist to support the team with learning and training in multiple domains. Systems, what I mean by that is things like technology structures, for example, decision rights, are not yet optimized to manage the scale of the network. So those implications are that, again, outside in as a partner, it appears like there's a strong foundation of trust and commitment to build from for any potential change that the team might consider. We also hear that there's this opportunity to address communication challenges and yield loss or time spent on work that's important, but that somebody might not be the right or best person to manage. And that there's an opportunity to consider adding that incremental staff or to supplement with external resources. Which leads us to the 5 opportunities that I elevated earlier from the executive summary. The first sounds so jargony, so I will try to explain what this means in terms of codify the network model. What this means is to decide and then communicate how the campuses should interact with the central office team. And so this is the work of putting onto paper who has ownership for what when it comes to all of our functional work. And so whether it is teacher recruitment and everything from who writes a job posting, who is responsible for marketing that, to who is responsible for interviewing, who's responsible for making a hiring recommendation or decision, compensation offers. I elevate talent just as one function because it is a complicated function that hits every level of an organization. And so when we say codifying the network model, what that means is writing down onto paper where the decision authority sits and who has the responsibility for performing or doing work within a function. Is it at the school level? Is it at the central office level? And again, we put that on paper so that everybody is on the same page. And that's what the first piece means. Second, combined with that is an opportunity to clarify decision processes. And again, similar to codification of the network model, this is to write it down. School leaders, our Académie Lafayette team make hundreds, if not thousands, of decisions on a day-to-day basis. And so we are not suggesting that we would document those 1,000 decisions, but rather that we would pull up and look at, here are the 20 decisions that we have found as a team we might spin on, or we spend time on, or I find that I'm not sure if it's my decision or if it's my colleague, so I might spend time there. So this clarifying the decision process, we recommend a tool to do it. There are a number of tools out there that you can use. Rapid is the name of the tool that we have proposed. There are other tools like Darcy or RACI, R-A-C-I, that are all wonderfully helpful for this type of work. The third piece is to clarify expectations through training and support. And again, the team has some structures already for training. And here we would, again, encourage that alignment and opportunity around classroom management, attendance, parent communication, and systems. And this is the writing down of who is responsible for what. As a teacher, what is my responsibility in each of these domains? And then who do I go to? What are the responsibilities of the other team members that work with me to support these things? Fourth, we see an opportunity over time to refine reporting structures. So right now, we would propose over time to shift all non-instructional responsibilities from the head of school to an operations leader who would manage school-based operations along with the central office functions. This is a structure that we think would take time to get to. A change that we would recommend could occur over a series of years. It's not a change that would happen with the flip of the switch. But the reason or the rationale is that at the scale of a school community like Académie Lafayette, the work of instructional leadership and external stakeholder management is so significant for a head of school who is an instructional leader that creating the space to do those bodies of work by having another leader who would likely report in to the head of school to manage and lead and carry those operational tasks would give the head of school a little bit more leverage in those, again, critically important domains. It is a very common structure that we see in networks that have grown and that are of the scale of Académie Lafayette. And then finally, the last recommendation, and I will stop talking here and open the floor up for questions, would be to add some capacity and talent. And here, given the complexity of recruitment for teachers who are fluent in French and the complexity of some of the international hiring, we know that a traditional charter school talent manager may not be the right type of fit, but would propose that we craft a project manager type role that could provide the arms and legs support of this full talent cycle, along with additional project management leverage to the head of school, given, again, the amount of time and work and capacity that function takes on a day-to-day, month-to-month basis. So I'm going to stop sharing now, and I would welcome any questions and or any feedback from any of the folks that I know we had an opportunity to connect with earlier in the process.
So one thing I want to indicate, because there are some board members who were not here maybe when we started this process, or may not realize why we're having this assessment. It's because School Smart Casey gave us a grant for the high school and our expansion, and they hired Schoolworks, or not, another organization to do their due diligence before they allocate the $3 million grant. The conclusion of that organization was that they shared with School Smart Casey that our schools were functioning with a very thin central office based on the size of we were. And they recommended that we do an assessment of needs. So School Smart Casey followed up and worked with us in the process of choosing one organization to conduct the assessment of needs, and it is funded by School Smart Casey. This result will be shared with them also. So it was part of our grant that we conducted this needs assessment, organizational assessment. And then there were 3 organizations who applied to conduct this, and we worked with School Smart and chose Bellwether to do it. So they have been working with us since April, I think, and met with a lot of people, and board members and principal teachers and many people, and then to finalize this. So we thought that presenting it to the board, and the report would be sent to the board. So that's the background of this work.
And I'll share, I had the opportunity to talk with Katie earlier in the summer, and I was, really glad that we went through that process, really impressed with Katie and her team, just the process that was used and the thoughtfulness in which they approached helping us evaluate where we are. It's always been a big worry of mine that as we have significantly grown over the last 5 years, our sort of administrative staff has not grown with us. And I worry tremendously that our staff is stretched so very, very thin. And so I do think this is a really big priority for us to sort of move into the next phase of our work, since we're not the school that we were 6 years ago. And so we need different structures to continue to move forward. So I really appreciate just the overview and the recommendations.
Yeah, and finally, I just let you know that when I arrived here 9 years ago, we were 750 around that student. The central office has not changed. It's the same people, and sometimes we've been functioning with less than we had before. The same number of people. Now we're 1,300 students. I mean, we have prioritized investing in the classroom, and that's what we've done. And so now we are at a point where almost a breaking point, or we recognize, everybody recognize that probably we need to adjust. And I know John has been pushing for years for an HR, and he's right, of course.
Yes, I appreciate the focus on students, but we're definitely at a point that where we are is not sustainable. We cannot continue to ask of you and your whole staff the kinds of things that you all are currently taking responsibility for. So we need to sort of figure out how do we, and like Katie said, it doesn't happen overnight, but we need to sort of have a plan for getting there, essentially. Any other questions or feedback for Katie? All right.
So it will be sent to you, and if you have other questions, you can always, we'll work with Katie, and you can contact her and send an email or something like that. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Katie.
Take care.
I'll go back to my presentation.
I think finance is up next.
Okay. Jackie, are you ready?
I am.
Jackie's always ready.
I'm ready. Okay, you guys ready? So the finance report typically follows several areas: our July accounts payable, our DESI payments, our year-to-date projections, a little summary over our federal programs, and let you know that the finance committee, we reviewed some capital accounts and capital needs. And then last but not least, we need to talk about E-rate for a moment, and we can do that. So the next slide, let's go over July accounts payable while we're here. There were 4 areas that the finance committee asked about during our meeting. Oh, here comes the big siren. One of them was there were quite a few sub-agencies that were on July accounts payable, if you noticed, and that was for summer school. Our nurses didn't all work, and social workers didn't work in summer school. And then we also had some substitute teachers, which I think will probably carry into the year. Our transportation estimates went up a little bit because we had such great attendance in May. And this year we prepaid all of our insurance premiums. Typically we finance those, and I looked, and because of our cash flow right now, it seemed like we could save $3,000 and not finance those over the year. And our intern fees showed up in July, and some radio ads, people ask about that, and that's for our recruitment. So do you have any questions when you review July accounts payable? And if not, we need a motion to approve those.
Move to approve accounts payable for July, Ms. Harriet.
Second, Michelle.
Any discussion? Everyone in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion carries.
Next slide. We're not going to spend a lot on this. As you can see, we're just flat almost the last 7 months of the school for each month. And we didn't lose a lot if you notice the last several months. And the way this graph came out, it looks like dramatic, and it's really not that dramatic, because the baseline was about almost 1,200, and it was just a little over 1,200. 1,184 was the baseline. So it looks a little dramatic. I don't think the attrition during the year was about what we thought it would be. Our problem, as you can see, the first few months we didn't start out with the enrollment by about 50 students. Next slide. This just shows what has happened with our monthly payments. So June wasn't any different. For our basic formula, still about a little over $8,200, and our Prop C payment went down a little bit, but that's just kind of a up and down depending on the taxes during the month. Next slide. Our revenue budget to actual, that's been below almost every month, except for the times we had some of our grants deposited in those months. But we know, and this is month to month, and we know for the whole year that we were under due to several factors. Okay, next one. Expenditures to actual, same thing, month to month. As you can see, we did a good job controlling expenses, and that helped us with our bottom line at the end of the year. Next. Okay, so now that we have June essentially closed, we're still not totally final because we are making some coding corrections, but just wanted you to see that our at the top is the revenue, the lines under the green. Our budget was almost 15 million, and our revenue was about 14 million. So we were under revenue by $928,000. You can see that a lot of that was from the state, but I want to point out the federal revenue, and that is only because we had some issues there toward the end when we should have been asking for the reimbursement. And so that money will then be asked for in the next budget year, which I'll talk about in a little bit. So that's money that's owed to us, money that we've spent. We just need to get reimbursement. And if you look at the expenses, again, our budget was 14.5, and we were about just right at 13. So our pickup for expenses was about $1.3 million, which really helped us for the year. So you can see our operating revenue over expenses was $751 instead of our budget of $352,000. And some of that is because when I presented last time, we had expected like May. We were hoping that we would get some of that federal money billed, and we were not able to do that. So that'll be carryover to next year. Any questions on that? Next slide. So it's really not forecast, it's actual now that we have June closed. And like I said, the numbers won't change, the coding might, as we have been working with a federal expert at Westbrook who's helped us kind of walk through some ESSER expenses that we might have spent in this fiscal year and not identified as such. And so we might do some coding, which will help us in next year to get reimbursement for some of those expenses. We expected to just be a break-even budget of a little over $3,000, and we're going to end the year at almost $400,000 to the good. Last month, I think I projected 160, 150 to the good, and now it's 388,961. So that is this is a good slide for us this year compared to our fears October and November of last year. Any questions here? Okay. All right, next slide.
I don't want to do a round of applause, but that's not really a question.
Yes, I'll take it. We'll take it. And some of this is the ESSER money and funds we weren't expecting, obviously, and some that we did spend, and getting our expenses paid from our federal grant. We have until the end of September to finish because their fiscal year is October. So we're working really hard to get the rest of that. I wanted to go over this E-rate. So E-rate is funding from it's a Universal Service Fund, federal fund, and it provides discounts to schools and libraries based upon your poverty level. So this year we haven't purchased, upgraded any of our switches or access points for almost 4 years, going on 5 years. And so Roger has been working with E-rate, an E-rate consultant, who then puts our needs out online, and we get several people to bid. And this year, having gone through all of them, the team looked at Heartland Max, which is a local company, which really helps Mr. Roger in getting local assistance and being able to help with Wi-Fi issues and that kind of thing. So if you look at it, we got 50% discount on almost all of the services, except for some of the services like $50-some thousand for the protection. And with Chad on our finance committee and being in the IT business, that was something that was really critical for all of the issues that other businesses and schools and cities are having with having their servers taken over and ransomware and those kinds of things. So the total price to do everything that we absolutely need to do, which includes new switches, Wi-Fi, routers, and the threat protection, was a little over $154,000. And we're meeting again with them tomorrow to totally finalize everything, but it's almost $93,000 that the school would be responsible for, and the rest is covered by E-rate. And so because we haven't completely finalized, looked through every single little line, I just wanted to make sure we had a little bit of a pad in there up to $95,000 so that we can upgrade all of the things that we need to continue our Wi-Fi. And as you may assume, talking about some of the issues that we've had with our growth and not adding people, same thing with growing and adding computers to do testing online and not increasing our capacity. So this is the year that we really need to do that so that we don't have downtime during testing, which we've had last year. Make scheduling easier because we can only have so many people online at one time. So if anybody has any questions about E-rate or how we got to this point, you can ask me.
Okay, so I'm going to move to approve this motion. I guess I read it to approve this discounted E-rate total for up to $95,000 to purchase needed Wi-Fi, switches, routers, and threat protection for all campus.
There's a second.
Second is John.
Any discussion? Everyone in
How
favor?
How many bids did we get?
Oh, let's see. I don't know. I don't know. It's put up on when you get the consultants, they put it up, you post your 470 and it goes out to everybody. All providers know that it's out there during this period of time. And then there are several. There are more than 3, I'm sure. I think they narrow it down to 3. And then look at who provides. One of the keys to this year was that they felt it was important to have a local provider, and this was one of the local providers that did. I can send you. I didn't copy all of the responses to the 470, but I can get those to you for sure.
Any other questions or discussion? Everyone in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries.
Okay. So I just wanted to mention, when I mentioned the $300 and some thousand for federal programs that's carryover that we will bill in this next year, there's another issue with our ADA increasing. Since students came back March, April, and May, especially April and May, the attendance for only those 31 days was significantly higher than what we had been asking DESI to pay for. If you remember, I was doing a very conservative request at 94% because of the so many kids in remote, September to December. When students came back, their actual seated attendance supersedes all of those attendance hours from September until the day they came back. So with parents encouraging students to come back for those 41 days at the last of the school year, it really increased our ADA. And I think to the tune of probably 28 students. We're going through a review and audit of all of the reports to make sure right now. That doesn't usually, for those of you who've been on the board for a while, those makeup hours or differences, sometimes we have to pay back as 1 or 2 students, sometimes it's 3 or 4 that come in, happens at audit time, and that does not show up on our DESI payments until around October. Some years November. So DESI has their hands full dealing with all of these ADA changes that just happened in that June report. So I think with the addition of 228 students, the 350,000 from the federal carryover, we probably should do a budget adjustment, because to me that will impact what we budgeted for ESSER 3 in that 21-22 school year. We probably will not need all of that. And it is, you're allowed to carry that over to the 22-23 school year, which would be a benefit to us also. So Mr. Bang and I will work on that with Westbrook and do a budget amendment. We've never really done one before. We addressed that with the forecast and the variance every month in our finance committee. But because it's so significant, over $700,000 probably in changes in revenue, we probably will, we will do a budget amendment. I don't know, summer school early estimate, Mr. Bang may have more updated information, but when we met for finance last week, it was around 102, which was awesome. We're still, again, looking at that, and because with our new database, we just want to make sure we've captured everything correctly. I think I told you our total.
I want to make sure everybody understands. We're ending, if we took the federal money and the ADA money plus our positive of 388, we could be 800,000-900,000 above budget. So that's really what we're ending the year with. That's why we're going to do a budget adjustment.
And then next year, in our first draft of the budget, we really needed the ESSER 3 funding of around 970,000 for things that were already included in our budget, and that's how we got to balanced budget. But that may change too, so that's a good point. So we have a lot of carryover, increased revenue, which may help us out in the 22-23 school year also. We discussed several capital needs. Oak stairs are still outstanding. We can discuss that next month. Cherry playground needs and a final decision on what that looks like. We needed additional furniture for next year that will most likely be ESSER covered, because we just didn't have the furniture the way we had structured our classrooms to provide social distancing, and had to purchase additional desks. You all approved the expenses for the oak window upgrades, which means allowing those windows in the addition to open and close. They are just now, because of the pandemic and the pipeline and getting supplies, just getting some of those supplies in, so that will go, that expense will go in this next year. And Mr. Bang and I will have to reconvene, because for the ESSER 3, we've done the reopening plan that DESI said was complete, but we need to have another meeting and include a few more stakeholders to review what we had put into the budget, or what we hope to put into, what expenses we are going to need to pull from ESSER 3 for next year. We need some input from a few more community members. So that is our final goal we've got to accomplish in the next couple of weeks.
Jackie, on those oak stairs, weren't you saying we needed those almost before school started?
Well, that's not going to happen. We had a little delay, and so it just won't. That won't happen. But I think if we do it in phases, and it won't take as long to do. So I think that the proposals had numerous phases, but the most urgent probably would stay under, I don't know, under $50,000. So not all the sidewalks and everything else that we talked about. So we'll have to come back once the vendor is chosen and get approval on that. And that's because we just didn't have it phased out. You know, what was the most critical to do in order to get the school open, the doors, safe exits on that Oak side.
And Jackie, regarding ADA, has DESE made a determination how that will be calculated in our second year impacted by COVID?
Yes, say that again.
Do we know how ADA will be figured next year? I know last year ADA was so different because of COVID, and now we're going into second year of COVID. Have they made any decisions as to how they are counting attendance or not?
The only thing I know is that we did another Mr. Bang knows he did another AMIX plan to address the potential for remote learning and seated, remote, and virtual. So I'm sure he'll address that, but he completed that AMI plan. So I believe it's going to be exactly the same. So we'll have remote students potentially. We'll have students in quarantine potentially, so that if they were here to begin with, then they'll be counted present. And I think we have figured out our system a little bit more. It's just remote and seated learning and how to code that. You know, the good thing is that the start of the school will be mainly seated. So I think then tracking it will be a little easier. But Mr. Bang, I know, did the AMI plan, which is the alternative methods of instruction, just to be prepared.
We have to submit an alternative method of instruction for those who are online and students who may be quarantined or isolated. And there are two ways of calculating it. Those who are on site is a traditional way of attendance. Those who are online would be based on task completion. So, and then there'll be around 94% of attendance if the task is completed. Are you done?
I am.
Okay, next.
Any other question or comment?
Any other question? So next we're gonna go to the development part. One thing I just wanna indicate again is, as you remember back in July or June, the board decided on a calendar of data. So in August, we'll be presenting three types of data. One is the fundraising data, the yearly 2019, 20, 21, and the recruitment data also, and also the summer schools. So that's what we're going to present this for this month. Celia, it's yours.
Yes. Good evening, everyone. So I've structured the development committee with subcommittees to assign focus on the particular tasks so that we can work within our guidelines that we've established within our committee. This will help, align with the strategic plan for the development department. We've also begun executing the fundraising efforts for this year's annual raffle, which will begin here shortly. I've also been participating and identifying in engagement with solicitation of potential donors through communicating with our donors currently to sustain their relationship and then gather more information from them. We also created and developed a tentative calendar of events for the upcoming school year, along with our planned meeting dates. So that will also help us with any volunteers that want to jump in and help with that as well. Which leads us to the next slide. And that shows us the calendar of it's pretty much a tentative. So it's our guideline. Michelle has done a phenomenal job in also adding a lot of the stuff that, since I'm, fairly new on this, has brought to the table. And there's a couple things that we're going to probably keep adding. Michelle, do you have anything else you want to add on to the calendar right now?
No, nothing on there now.
I didn't think so.
I think we've got a lot to do.
And then our next slide is the Development Department Fundraising Report. So with the help of Jackie as well, our fundraising grants broken up into different percentages. Our federal grant, of course, is going to be our higher, as well as our annual fund and raffle. And then we supersede with the little smaller efforts, and hopefully we'll be growing even more this year, willing that we are in school and active with events. So everyone cross your fingers. I believe that's it. Does anyone have any questions or anything? Michelle, any other comments you want to add that I might have forgotten as well?
No, just shout out to you. I really like, she started out talking about these subcommittees, and it's so smart, and it's taken the development committee and focused, so somebody's focused on new opportunities, and others are focused on community liaisons, and others are focused on events. And so it's not putting all of the burden on the whole committee, and I think helping us divide and conquer a little bit better. So great idea.
Thank you.
Any more questions? The next one, governance.
Michelle, do you want to do the governance report? So Michelle has taken over as chair of the governance committee. So I'll let her walk through this. Okay, so we'll scratch the Dana part of the board training. You're all getting those email reminders from Vector, and I think we talked about it in the last meeting, and those are due in November. We do know, and I will send out something, we do know, we're pretty sure, I should say, 3 that we do need to take, and it certainly wouldn't hurt everyone to take them. It gives you hours toward your 16 hours of board training that you need. And so the 3 that we know we want to take are the child abuse mandatory reporting, the boundary invasion, and the active shooter. So I'll send that out to you. You guys will get those reminders. We looked at possibly having Dana do what she's done before, where she's done a group training, but instead of adding that much more time onto the board meetings, these are ones that then you can self-direct and you have some time to finish. So I'll send that out again in an email to just confirm, so everybody knows which ones to take. The new charter sponsor, I know Mr. Bang, you have been very active in that. You're continuing his meetings, and you're going to bring the next steps to us on that. I don't know if you have an update since we met last week.
Yes, I've met with one potential sponsor. We had discussion. They, at their request, of course, wanted to share with us what they're offering. So it's KCPS, and I raised some questions about that, notably regarding our H-1B and regarding other questions that as community may have. So I also had a discussion with UCM. The reason is the following. As you know, we need H-1B, we need to be exempt from the H-1B visas cap. I mean, I'm going to explain again. If you were a school or a business like Microsoft or Apple, all those businesses apply for H-1B visas from, around the world. But the problem is the federal government caps the number of H-1B allocated or given a year to around 65,000. Last one I remembered. Unfortunately, you will have every year around 300,000 or 250,000 applications for 65,000 visas. And the opening of the applications is generally April 1st, which means that on April 1st, the Immigration Services receives 250,000 the same day application for 65,000 visas. Then what they do is, because everybody applied the same day, so they do a lottery. You may have one, you may have zero. And the second thing for us is you cannot file H-1B prior to that, as we used to do, or after that. So the reason I'm saying it is, however, university, institution of higher education are exempt from that cap. And if you have affiliation with them, you benefit from that exemption, which because of UCM, we were able to file for H-1B at any time through the year. So I had a discussion with first our lawyer. I had a discussion with our lawyer about an idea that I shared with Beth and Michelle is, what if we have an affiliation agreement with UCM or UMKC, because some schools, they do it. Affiliation agreement means they can provide some training with us, and they can send us their interns for the School of Education, intern teachers to come to our school. And and we have a kind of agreement like that with an affiliation of with the School of Education. They can give training and send up interns and so on. So I had a discussion with the lawyer. He said, if we have an affiliation agreement, we can have a sponsor who is not at the university, because we can still get that. When you say a sponsor that's not a university, at this point, there are only two. It's KCPS and the Missouri Charter School Commissions that has the bulk of charter school at this point. So, and I talked to Vicki Hughes from UCM, and she was really thrilled of the idea of possibility of continuing to collaborate in the regard. And also she connected me with the Dean of the School of Education. We have some exchange, email exchanges, and we'll have to meet later and discuss what it looks like sending us interns, of course, because we receive interns anyway. Sometimes our teachers receive interns. And just to let you know, I did the same thing in Portland with Lewis and Clark College. They used to send me the interns from the fresh department. They come and it was part of their credit. They signed something, and I placed them to a teacher into a classroom, and then I evaluate them. So that's something like that, or even more with a university that will allow us to get the exemption. Otherwise, so we would be, we need to get a university at this point from St. Louis, and I will continue to discuss with them and report to you until the board needs to meet with any of them and have a discussion. So at this point, that's where we are.
And I know in the governance committee, we had talked about just the timing to make sure, I know our drop dead date of needing a new sponsor isn't until June, but we probably need to make the decision this fall prior to us needing to start applying for visas. Would you agree that by about November, we need to?
Our immigration attorney told me that if we're doing affiliation, we need to do it prior to February, at the latest in February. Latest in February, we need to have all those things aligned so that she can take care of this. So maybe a goal of choosing a sponsor before December would be a good one.
Right. Yes, I agree. I don't think we want to delay. I think we know sort of how to move forward, identifying which is the right sponsor. So I would say to do that sooner rather than later so that we're not backed up against a deadline for visas.
Yep. Okay. Any questions on that? Anyone?
Yes, me. I'm sorry. Have you talked to you said you talked to Kansas City. Have you talked to the state board yet?
The Missouri Charter School Commission?
Yes.
No, it's the next one. It's the next.
Okay.
I'll by the end of next week, I'll talk to them.
And you have not talked to the people in St. Louis, or you have?
No.
Okay. Are you planning to?
Yes, I'll talk to them. I'll talk to whoever is available, and even University of Missouri, Columbia. The issue is, from what I heard, they had some, whether it's true or not, they had certain things to resolve with DESI before taking a new sponsor.
Okay, so you are gonna talk to the people in St. Louis and the people.
Yeah, by our September meetings, we'll have a good idea of who's offering what, and if you need to invite somebody there too, we can do it.
Okay.
Because I think the process was Mr. Imbing will sort of meet with each of them individually, identify which are potential sponsors that then the top candidate might get invited to a board meeting, or we would do a separate meeting just to sort of interview that sponsor essentially.
Okay.
Whichever way you want to do it, I will be open to that.
But you're hoping to set up something maybe with one of the universities to help us with our H-1Bs.
Yes.
And that would be totally separate from the
That would be totally, but if we don't get that set up, then we have to have a university to do the H-1B. So kind of, we need to know that program is set up before we make our last decision type thing. Because if we don't get that program set up and we pick somebody that's not there, then we have a problem.
Right.
Does that make sense, what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yeah, it looks like UCM was very enthusiastic to continue our partnership, but we have UMKC close to us, and we have some relationship to also with UMKC. I don't know, even maybe having we can also have two affiliation, depending on what we need, which department we need. So I'll see with UMKC also what is possible. But I think maintaining the tie with UCM is a good thing too, because at least they understand our challenges.
The DESI local compliance, I don't remember what this is.
Mr. Mbang was gonna, or Jackie, one of you was gonna.
Jackie, can you talk about this?
Sure. So
Yes, it was blank in my head.
you don't remember last year or the year before. So every year, the LEA has to adopt a local compliance plan, which is part of Part B of the IDEA. And Missouri has a local compliance plan that we can adopt, and then we meet all the regulations. Some schools might want to do something differently. Then they have to completely write a plan that meets all the other regulations. So what we need to do is approve that Académie Lafayette chooses to adopt the 2021 Missouri State Plan for special education. So that just, and this is the SPED department, this is what they want to do, and we just have to do this every year, and then Mr. Bang signs it, and it's one of our required screens that we'll send into DESI before, well, soon, in September.
Right, can we get a motion to approve the DESI local compliance
Plan.
Marvin, so moved.
Harriet, second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Right, motion carries. And there was one other thing with the governance. I saw you were about to say something, Michelle.
No, go ahead.
Just that in the same way that each year we sign our pledge, commitment, and conflict of interest, the governance committee is also recommending a diversity commitment that we all sign at the same time, and it's aligned with the commitment statement that's in the strategic plan that we all just revised. So that will just become another commitment that we make as board members that you'll see in your email shortly.
Yep, I'll send that out to everyone. And I also want to thank everyone for getting all of your annual commitments in. We got everybody's in, so we're on track there. One other final thing I wanted to talk about, and I can send this out in an email unless everybody has an opinion, but and this is far off, but in March, our board meeting is scheduled the week of spring break. So we're going to look at doing that either the week before, the Monday before, or the Monday after. So I want to check with Mr. Bang and his staff and what works best for them. And then we'll get that update sent out to everyone. And that is it.
Okay, health school report. So the staff recognition, we have fantastic people, and they help us do a successful summer school with a lot of challenges, of course, as you follow it. A lot of more cases of COVID than usual, but they did what they could to make sure that the kids are safe. Usman Balde is the summer school director. He coordinated it for the last 3 years. And I'll give a kudo also to our nurse, Kristen Carlson, who really coordinated the COVID during the summer and was on top of all the things that needed to be done. It was a lot of work, of course. I say thank her very much. And also the summer school coordinator by campus, Cherry One, was Brenda Jones and Brandy McLean for Oak campus. The building manager, Maria Raz of Cherry. Mulai Sedi was vice principal who helped to at Cherry too. We have here high school team that continue to meet throughout the summer, despite the fact that, of course, they are on vacation, but we have been meeting every week. Liz Seeley, the ARMA counselor, Robin King, director of admissions, Katie Wilson, the IB coordinator, and Marilyn Hines, who has been the high school project coordinator. Again, I think one of our big lack also is having such a wonderful team that work really hard and very committed to help. And of course, on top of that team, we have Dr. Melissa Paul, who had been coordinating things and extremely helpful too. They did a good job. And I would like also to thank Chris Anton, who is the Title I coordinator. He continuing to support the summer school reading project here on Thursdays, and parents coming to read in French with other volunteers who came here on Thursday to read for kids in French. And last but not least, a big thank you for Jackie Lane, our business manager. I know she spent the last 5 months or 6 months extremely, crazy ones. Between the Bellwether project and the West Ed during the charter school program, federal grant review was crazy. A lot of work and dealing with the federal government. She was fantastic. Again, thank you, Jackie, for everything you've done. You did a good job. So moving next to the enrollment report, Madam, Robin, are you here? Ready?
Yes.
Good.
All right. So actually, this is self-explanatory. So if anybody has any questions, but this is our income enrollment numbers that we have so far, as well as our current wait list numbers. Any questions on incoming? And we can also move on to the next one. Mm-hmm. And so this is overall for incoming and re-enrollment numbers. estimates that we have so far. And so you'll see the totals at the bottom, along with probably the last 3 areas are probably of most interest to everyone. So you'll see basically our non-minorities and then minority count in our total. So that's overall so far. And then it's just a diagram that you have with that as well. And then the next slides are going to be based by campus. Go ahead, yeah. So this is Armor. And then the next one, Oak. And then last but not least, you'll have Cherry. And that's all I have.
Any question about this data?
Robin, do you know how much of this is made up of siblings?
I do not. I will see if I can pull that from Tyler, because I actually am getting into that. I'm seeing, so
yeah,
it's by families now that it's done, but you know, some may not be last names and such, so I don't know, but I'll see if it pulls that way or not in Tyler. That's going to be an experiment to find out.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, and it probably will, just we have to learn it.
Okay, good. So summer school report, as I said, we need to give you a report of what was the breakdown of enrollment and the attendance rate. So for one reason, the free and reduced and IEP report did not come up. But you have the breakdown by ethnicity. The percentage are attendance rate. Attendance rate by Cherry, by ethnicity, Oak, Armor Middle School, and Armor High School. One thing I just want to point out was that this is our first summer school program for the high school in math. We offered math for students in coming to 9th grade, or those who were in 7th grade. We had 13 students who attended the summer school math. It was 3 hours of math every day. And it was extremely helpful for those kids who came every day. And we saw a lot of progress for those students who attended every day. So we also provide transportation for those kids. So it was a good experiment. So this is what it turned out to be: ADA, average daily attendance, Cherry, number of hours, Oak, Armor, and the high school. If you see the Cherry one is lower because, as you know, we had a lot of cases and kids who may not come back to attend. And at the end of the day, as Jackie said before, ADA, what we estimate is 102, and what we budgeted was 107. And the COVID, this report was requested by Harriet, who wanted to know the COVID cases, and gave you the number of classes that was quarantined. So one of the challenges, when you requested it, our nurse was already out, so I had to work with the summer school coordinator to figure out the numbers that we had, and the number of classes were quarantined. At Cherry, the only class that was not, grade level that was not affected was the first grade class, so they were not affected, but any other grade level were affected. At Oak, it was only one grade level, 5th grade. At Armor, one grade level, 7th grade. And the high school, there was no case reported. There was no quarantine.
we quarantine, do we quarantine the entire class or do we quarantine a cluster?
The class, the court. The problem is, I mean, we're going to change anyway, coming back, coming to for the new school year. It's going to be changed. Here it was by court. We followed our guidelines and the guidelines of the Kansas City Health Department. So what we did was anybody who were in contact with that those children were quarantined.
But that is one of the big changes that the health department made was the regulation surrounding quarantine and who has to quarantine, correct?
Yes, we're changing it. You don't have to quarantine the court or the class.
I'm sorry, we're gonna quarantine the what?
The court is a group of students together.
Okay.
We're not going to quarantine them. We will not.
Right. Because it used to be, my understanding is it used to be if one student had a confirmed COVID case, you had to quarantine the entire class. Now, if masks are correctly used in the classroom, you do not have to quarantine the whole class.
Yes.
Just that quadrant or something, whoever they talked to or whoever they were with.
Right. Anyone, my understanding, anyone they were in close contact with unmasked. So if they ate lunch too close to a student.
Okay.
Moving to the next one, planning, but this motion is already done, planning for 2021. So the new hires, this is our biggest challenge at this point. So we have new hires, most of them coming from France and a couple from Belgium, one from Mali, one from Senegal, and 5 from France. But the good news is the teachers from Belgium have received their visas. There was a delegate coming on Friday, and there was high school teachers. In France, we're still waiting. Senegal, we had a former teacher, a current teacher who went there on vacation and was stuck because of visa H-1B. We sent a letter to the embassy. He went with the letter and they gave him an expedited appointment. So for France, we're lucky that the French consulate, general counsel in Consul General de Chicago has offered to help expedite the appointment for the teachers coming from France. And we send them their passport numbers and their information. So they're working with the US Embassy in Paris to see how to expedite those teachers' visas. Our interns did not have the same issues, especially the interns coming from the French embassy. So because of the agreement between France and the US, the French authorities were able to help teachers coming from the French government going to French accredited schools. So so some of our interns, again, 5 of them will be here. So the other 5 are still waiting for the visas.
So how many teachers are we missing for day 1 who are still trying to get into the country?
How many teachers? I would say for elementary school teachers, maybe I'll think about 6. For high school, one teacher, and the high school teacher is not a core. How do you say it? We already have a solution for that. So it's not teaching at this point the subject that we're offering now. So there's no impact there. We already have it. So it's a chemistry and physics teacher that we're hiring ahead to be able to build the curriculum, and but the science one is already covered for high school. So high school will not be impacted. The only one impacted is elementary school, and we're trying to find a solution for those teachers.
So we're down 6. Can you break it down? Can you break it down what grades?
I can't at this point. I can't do that because we don't know exactly where they'll be they will be putting. So it's all grades. Every single grade is affected. So we have moved to a emergency solution that will be covered at this point. We hope that some of them will be here very soon, which will resolve the issue. But remember, last year we had also 7 or 8 teachers stuck outside, weren't able to come. So the new teacher from the US are doing the orientation, doing very well with the principals, and the building managers have been extremely helpful, principals helping them and in the onboarding process. So good job. The priorities for this coming years, as you know, we would like to open full-time in person in the building. And we really invite parents to choose to be online, to be in person, but we still have 31 people, 31 students who opted to be online. So we would like to be full-time in uninterrupted in-person learning. And of course, physical safety and emotional safety of our students and parents and staff is a priority, and also addressing the academic needs. As you know, there are some gaps that across the board that we need to address. It is shown by, it has been shown by the NWA test on spring, and also the preliminary MAP test result we have showed also that there is a dip in, especially in math, less in English language and science, but in math. So what we want to do is have a rigorous reading intervention program in English and French, implementing also a K2 improvement project to help in French reading and math, but also providing early academic support for all struggling students in 3rd, 4th, 5th, and up, and making sure that we are supporting our teachers in that endeavor. So that's going to be our 3 major focus for the school year. Facilities, Oak, just to let you know, we changed our starting time. Prior to this year, we had 3 starting time. Now we will have only 2 because Cherry and Oak will have the same starting time at 8:15, and Armour will start at 8 o'clock for students. Teachers will arrive 15 minutes before. So there's also need of additional desks for students, 260 for Cherry and Oak. The reason is, if you remember in kindergarten and 1st grade, we used to have the big tables that are shared. And because of COVID, we need to put them all into a storage and need to buy individual desks. But because the 2 campuses were not full last year, so we had enough desks. So now we need to buy additional desks. We are planning to buy the rectangular one so that after that, when you revert back to the bigger table, those triangular desks can be used for all the grades and even middle or high school. Same kind of desk. So the IT department has been working to get on getting ready for our new school year, the database, laptops, connections, and so on. Extremely busy. One of our big challenges is the database. Still working on it and making sure that we don't have the same mistake or difficulties for this coming school year. Laptops, as you know, we bought enough Chromebooks for all our students. We will maybe purchase a very few, but we've chosen to keep, not to give at this point one-to-one for kindergarten and 1st grade, and they'll keep it in the classroom for kids to use. Jackie talked about the federal E-rate. It was coordinated by Misha Gujabi for tech equipment, handling connectivity to be replaced and upgraded in all 3 buildings, switches, routers, APs, and others. So Gujabi have been, is our IT director, have been working with specialists to get this E-rate, federal E-rate program. So now the COVID plan. Key points that changed. We have our committee started meeting. We met twice, and we will keep meeting every other week to monitor the situation, see what kind of changes we need to do. We're lucky that we have healthcare professional on the committee that will help us also and give us information. So the major changes are for the learning models, we'll only be offering in person and online. We don't have this hybrid one and changing things, and we would like to be in person. To date, we have 31 students who chose to be online, which make it difficult because you cannot have like last year a teacher, kindergarten just teaching online or first grade and so on. So we have it's scattered throughout the grade, like 2 in kindergarten or 3, and then 0 in first grade, and we have 5 in second grade, and so on. So all the way to 9th grade. So we have been meeting with the teachers to see what's the best way to offer an online model. We met with the teachers today, and as a leadership team, we will make a decision on what kind of format would be offered for the online one. Mask will be mandated for staff and students inside the buildings, but during recess is optional. Quarantine, if there's a proper masking, students in the same cohort will not be quarantined. So only the students who is contaminated or who is tested positive would be isolated, and instruction will continue online for the students. So coming back to the online one, we have to resolve 2 things. Number 1 is for the students who chose to be online, but also for the students who are quarantined without the teacher, because the instruction need to continue to online. So we also decided that if in-cohort transmission is suspected, the cohort is tested and a mask may be required during recess also until 14 days. The reason is we're trying to learn from the lesson we learned. We had with the 3rd grade at Cherry. So we had how many kids? 7 kids contaminated, and they didn't have a contact outside schools. So we suspect that it was in person. It was a very uncommon. Hopefully we won't be having that again. As opposed to quarantining everyone, we just think that limiting the transmission with testing and masking would be helpful. Lunch is also another challenge, because during lunch, students, again, for social distancing in the class is going to be 3 feet, but during lunch they have to be 6 feet if you're unmasked. Now, think about a class of 20, you can have 6 feet there. So we are thinking of alternating it. There are 2 propositions made. One is we do A, where A is students are taking the lunch, B are masked and doing something else like watching a video, and then after they switch, which is more challenging, or take half of the class to do the recess while half of the class is doing the lunch and switch again, or have half of the class in an auditorium distance while the 10 others will be 6 feet and having their lunch. So that's those 3 ideas we're trying to develop and implement, one of them, to follow the guidance of having 6 feet apart and masked. So now this is the number of students who opted to be online by grade level. If you go to Armor, 8th grade, we have 1, 7th grade, 2, 6th grade, 5, or a total of 9. And we have 1 in 9th grade, sorry, it's not that. We have 1 in 9th grade. And Cherry, kindergarten, we have 2, 1st grade 0, 2nd grade 2, 1st grade, 3rd grade 1, and 4th grade 3, 5th grade 1. Oak is almost the same. 1 in kindergarten and 0 in 1st grade. So total K5 is 22, as you see it. So we have been discussing how to deal with this, which is a bit challenging. How to make sure that, especially K-5, to offer the online option. So one more thing I want to say is principals have been contacting some parents to try to convince them to bring their students on site in person, because we think that those students need to be in person to be better served. So we have some success, but limited success so far. But few parents changing. But again, it's hard to have a teacher for 5th grade level or 6th grade level. And we are trying to see how to best put them together and serve them. Okay, any question about the learning options?
I would just say that I'm really impressed with the work that the task force is doing. I mean, it is, I think we had all hoped to be in a different position and have a more normal school year. That is not the position we find ourselves in. And so I'm really impressed with the work the task force is doing to put together a very thoughtful plan to meet the needs of students and keep them safe in the building. So I know that is no easy thing to do right now.
Yeah, doing a great job. We have a good team and open discussions, and it's really great. Okay, now it's the president.
I mean, just one small thing. I think everybody's aware of the legislation with the charter school funding glitch that we continue to keep an eye on. There's also federal funding that is apparently concerning. There is new legislation going through to prevent for-profit charter schools from getting public funding. But the way the language is presented, Doug Thaman and his group are worried has larger implications for charter schools. It's not the intention of the law. So it's something we're keeping an eye on. Nothing needs to be done at the moment, but there is some legislation moving through regarding for-profit charters. But that's all I have.
So, looks like it's the end. Do you have any question for me?
I think we skipped diversity.
The diversity was not first on the agenda, so.
Oh, okay.
So I don't see it on the agenda, but we can report on that too, by the way.
I don't know if Kelly's on, if she wants to give a quick report, or I can just give one sentence on the work of the
Beth,
board.
I'm on here.
Okay.
Let me, I'll turn on my camera. Let's see. So the last time we met, I believe it was back in July.
Oh, you're right. It was on the agenda. I don't know how I skipped it on the presentation. Yeah, sorry. I'm sorry.
That's okay. No worries. Well, the diversity committee, we're supposed to meet this week, actually, but due to a few conflicts and things, we're not going to meet until actually next Wednesday. We're going to finish up talking through what our role is as a committee in supporting the revised goals from 1 and 2. So we had some really good discussion our last meeting. Matter of fact, we went over, but we just need to finish that up on Wednesday. And then we'll, I know I have to report back, I think, to Michelle in regards to what our calendar it will look like for the 2021-22 year. So I think we'll also discuss that as well. So that's what's coming up on the diversity committee. Beth or Mr. Bang, if you have anything else.
No, I know we have moved our meeting from the 11th to the 18th now. So,
The 18th,
one thing we did was also trying to focus on those goals and do a reporting system to the committee and make sure we're tracking our successes and our challenges.
Yes.
So we have a good group.
That's it.
All right. I don't believe we have anything for closed session tonight, correct?
I don't know of any.
And I haven't seen Dana. I don't think she's even on. So
Yeah.
if there's no final questions, we can move to adjourn the meeting.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone.
Have a good night.
You too.
Good night.
Bye.